Yay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Bordertown Strange. I'm Pam, and this is my co-host, Jess.
Hello.
And tonight our show is on intervening fate, harbingers, and omens. And I would like to welcome all of our new listeners and members to the channel, as well as first-timers in the chat. If you're not joining us live, but listening on replay, thank you, and welcome to you as well. We're going to start off tonight's show as we normally do with What the Weird Word. So, Jess, do you want to take it?
Sure. And a little bit of housekeeping really quick. And it's just the usual. If you're on Facebook right now watching, just take a second to like and share. It helps get our numbers up. And if you're on YouTube, take a second to hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit that bell so you know when we're bringing you new stuff live. Also, if you're listening, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts from. We should be on all providers. And let us know if you can't find us, because that shouldn't be happening. Anywho's, yeah. What the weird. So it was my turn to do the What the Weird Word of the Week. And since we're doing intervening fate, let's do that one. We'll let Pam pull that up. Yeah, so before I start on our What the Weird Word of the Week, really quick, I want to give a shout out to In, who just came into the chats. We're doing this show tonight because of you. He was super interested when we were talking about missing time and things that had happened to people before major incidents that kept them away from being hurt or harmed in some way. So this show is all about you. And I also want to put out there that we're going to be talking about a lot of foreign type words. We're going to butcher them horribly. So congratulations and start your drinking game now, In. This is going to be a blast.
You're going to be flipped by the time the show's done. If you're doing a drinking game.
So this one's for you, In. Okay, intervening fate. So intervening fate is an instance in someone's life where an unexpected event or force alters the course of events seemingly guided by fate. It implies a shift in the predetermined or expected outcome, often due to an unforeseen circumstance or influence. This can be seen as fate intervening to change a situation, either for better or for worse. So there's a lot of theories behind this, why it happens. Maybe you have a predetermined fate, and fate is stepping in, making course corrections to keep you on track. Or life is chaos, and something is simply sticking its nose into your business. Or some people believe in maybe an angel type situation where you have someone looking after you, just kind of giving you a little push in the right direction or out of the way of something bad happening. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff like that tonight. All right, so moving on for that, I'm also going to talk a little bit about what harbingers and omens are. I think everybody kind of knows what that are, but I'm just going to put it out into the zeitgeist right now, because that's what we're going to be talking about. So harbingers, it's a person or a thing that announces or signals the approach of another. Of course, that's in the generality of it. While an omen is a phenomenon that is believed to be a sign of good or evil. So harbingers are basically what we're going to be talking about tonight, are the ones that are usually bringing doom and gloom with them, or giving you a sign something dirty is getting ready to go down. Yeah. And of course, an omen is almost sort of the same thing, but in a slightly different fashion. That can be a thing or just a sign of something bad or good to come. We will touch a little bit on the good stuff. But like Pam and I were talking about backstage, there's not a whole lot of good omens and harbingers, but there's a whole lot of bad. So
There's so many. We were like, we actually had a usually we can do this pretty good without having to meet in person, even though we're in the same town. But this time we were like, you know what? I think we need to get together on this one first.
We do. And we didn't even get far enough into it. There is so much. I had laughed because I'd showed up at Pam's house and I was like, okay, I really did a lot of Celtic, English, Welsh type of stuff. and I was crossing my fingers. That's not what she had done, and it's not what she'd done at all. She'd gone in a completely different route. Thank goodness.
Did, yeah.
Um, but there's so much more than what we had. I actually stopped at one point because I was like, man, this is way more than a show. And she agreed. So we know that this is going to go at least 2 shows. We're not going to be surprised if it goes 3. We're going to attempt to cut it off there because I think that's starting to get a little hairy. You know what I mean?
A bit much, for sure.
A bit much.
I don't know if you saw me put up Ian's thing. He said he's feeling pretty special right now.
Oh, he is special. Wait a minute. Is he special like eat the paste special or just special? Either way, we're eat the paste special too, so it doesn't really matter.
We're totally eat the paste special. 100%.
All right. So I believe what we're going to start off with tonight, we're going to talk about some really big cataclysmic type situations, man-made and not, where a lot of fate intervening happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe the first one we have pulled up is September 11th here in the States, 9/11. I think one of the worst things that's ever happened within the continental U.S.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations where everybody knows exactly where you were and what was happening when you heard the news of that first plane. And then, we were all thinking it was kind of a mistake, just something happened until that second plane hit. And then we all were like, oh no,
Yeah.
And then the third plane. And then we were like, holy cow. And then the fourth plane, that didn't land into anything. It was rerouted into a field. And then Justin and I were talking about this too. There's quite a bit of speculation, and there's some really good evidence for it that there was more than likely a fifth plane that never got to take off because they had already hit the World Trade Center, so the planes were grounded. And it does appear that there would have been a fifth.
Yeah. And about a dozen conspiracies on why it went down, when it went down, what was going on with all of that. And Pam and I both we decided not to discuss that tonight because that in itself, it's its very own show.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow, the amount of information that's into that. So today what we're going to focus on is, like I was talking about before, things that prevented people from getting on those planes and from being at the trade centers when this went down. And there is some amazing stuff, and of course we're not going to be able to cover them all, but I pulled down some of the big highlights of things that went down, and also we're going to focus a little bit on some of the high strangeness that happened around the towers while it was going on and after they fell, because there's a little bit that's going on with those. I think that just kind of leans to just how strange this entire thing was.
Yeah. Chris said, all these years later, these pictures bring me right back to that day and those feelings every time. Yeah, absolutely. And Julie said, yeah, I know where I was. Kind of like the older generation when Kennedy was killed. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Terrible stuff. All right. So when I went hunting for this, of course, I knew that there was a few celebrities involved. There was a lot of celebrities involved with this situation where they should have been there and they were not. So I'm just going to go down through my list. A lot of these are really amazing, and some of the incidences that happened that kept them from this situation is truly interesting. Mm-hmm. So the first one I have down is Seth MacFarlane. Of course, everyone knows who Seth MacFarlane is. He's famous for Family Guy and all of that stuff. He had actually been due to fly on American Airlines Flight 11 on that morning. However, he was suffering from an extraordinary hangover from a party he'd been through the night before.
Oh,
and
no.
yeah, he had mixed up some times, and he rushed to get there, and he was actually late to that flight by just 10 minutes. And unfortunately, he was standing in line waiting to get tickets for the next flight when that first flight flew into the side of the building. He just turned and walked away and then spent quite a while kind of holed up by himself, wondering what might have been.
Hmm.
So we almost lost Family Guy. I think it was only in its third season at the time. Could you imagine what that would have been like?
Crazy. Crazy to
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one was Mark Wahlberg, the famous actor. He was also due to fly on Flight 11 that morning. But he had a last minute change of heart and decided to fly to Canada to go to a film festival with a friend instead. At the very last second, he was like, nah, he didn't even cancel his flight. He literally just didn't go and decided to go to Canada instead. So, wow.
Something
Um,
flipped a switch in his brain, huh?
yeah. George Keith, a famous soccer player. Actually, I'm just going to read this because it's a little lengthy. His BMW unexpectedly shifted into first gear while driving on the 10th of September. He was less than impressed, he said. The investment banker wanted his prized BMW up and running to drive into Manhattan for his 8 a.m. meeting at the World Trade Center. Arriving at the garage at 7 a.m., he was frustrated to learn that the mechanics refused to work that early in the morning, forcing him to wait an extra hour for a repair that took less than 5 minutes. Once it was repaired, he made for the office but found himself stuck in traffic. As he looked up towards the tower where his meeting was supposed to take place, he spotted plumes of smoke. Switching on the car radio, he learned that a plane had just crashed into the very tower he was late getting to.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Could you imagine
Um,
how bad your stomach would drop if you saw that?
I I can't imagine what that
Mm-mm.
must feel like. Plus, you're almost going to suffer from survivor's guilt too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Another one, Michael Jackson, and I don't think I have to explain who Michael Jackson is to anyone. He was supposed to be on one of the very top towers of at the very top of the Tower 1 on that morning. He was supposed to have a meeting, but he accidentally overslept because he'd stayed up late the night before talking to his mother on the phone, and he overslept and missed it. So we almost lost him even earlier than what we did. Um, Here's an interesting Greer Epstein. He was actually the executive director of Morgan Stanley at the time. And if you all don't know, Morgan Stanley was on the 43rd floor, I think, of the building. Um, she
What
was
about
actually,
the room of fire on that
yeah.
picture?
Um, she actually got there extraordinarily early, too early for anyone else to be in the office. And so she turned around and thought, well, maybe I'll just run down really quick and get some coffee. And she ran downstairs, and there was a coffee joint right across the street. And she was in that coffee place when it went. So if she hadn't gotten there early, she would have been in the middle of it.
Hmm.
That's crazy. Um, a lady named Myra Glatz. She was a psychologist and professor at NYU at the time. Um, uh, she had an office in the World Trade Center at that time, and that morning, for some reason, her subway train didn't make it in time. It was the subway train itself was running late, and so she didn't get there in time. And in fact, I don't think she ever got off the subway because they stopped it. They stopped the subway system.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there was more than one person that actually missed because of that particular subway stopping.
Yeah.
What I saw.
Um, Lara Lundstrom Clark, she was an account manager at Baseline Financial on the 77th floor of Tower 2. She actually liked to go rollerblading in the morning for exercise through the Hudson River Park. And that morning, she was running 10 minutes late because she ran into her hero, Gwyneth Paltrow, who was out walking through the park. And Gwyneth Paltrow dared to visit with her for a few minutes, and it made her late, and she didn't make it to the towers in time. Rob Lowe was another one that should have been there. Uh, he was supposed to be on a flight, one of the two flights that went in. Um, Actually, no, he was supposed to be on the flight that went to Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Yeah, because they were filming The West Wing at the time, and they were using some of that for exterior shots and things like that. And he actually made another decision and turned around and went back to L.A. for some reason, so he missed that flight. Joseph Lott, an actor. Let me get down through here. Oh, so he was actually at the World Trade Center at that time, and a friend of his noticed that his tie was clashing with his green shirt. And so he ran down across the street to go buy a new tie so it would look better, and he was there when it exploded.
Nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
God.
Yeah.
Well, I have a
There.
with you when you hit a spot.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead, and I'll pull up my next notes here.
Okay, so I've got Holly Winter, and
Okay.
Holly. It was actually not her, but it was her mother's intuition that saved her. So Holly lived in Denver at the time, and she was supposed to be at the Twin Towers with her two best friends from college, one who lives in Chicago and the other one lives in New York City. But because the New York City friend, she worked nonstop, so Winter and her other friend, they coordinated their calendars around it for a surprise breakfast picnic in the original One World Trade Center. So that was the only date that worked for both of them. And their plan was to fly out that day into the city the night before and then show up at his office at 8 a.m. with a breakfast of champagne and caviar, which was his favorites. And so she called her mom, who lived in upstate New York, to let her know that, she was coming to town. And her mom was like, no, I'm coming to visit you instead. And so Holly begged her mom, change your trip. You're retired. Your schedule's more flexible. This is the only time I can get away to do this with my friends. And her mom was like, no, it's absolutely the right time for me to visit you. You're going to have to change your plans. So, very reluctantly, Holly canceled her plans with her friends. And then her Chicago friend decided to make the trip without her. So the surprise worked as planned, and they called Holly at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they laughed and talked for a while and hung up so they could enjoy the visit without them being on the phone. And they both died. But Holly, because of her mom being so, adamant, I'm coming to you, you're not going to New York City. Holly survived, but yeah, her friends did not. Pretty wild.
Yeah. That's insane. Like the weird little twists and turns that sometimes can keep you away. Speaking of twists and turns, the next guy, David Gray, he's a singer-songwriter in the States. He wasn't able to make it to the World Trade Center that morning. He was supposed to have gone to a meeting, but he couldn't because at the last minute, he twisted his ankle, and he had to turn around and go to the doctor instead. So that was an ouch kind of situation. Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, she was supposed to have a meeting at the North Tower, but at the last second, her charity decided to have an interview, and she had to run and go do that really quick, and they postponed it. So thankfully, I don't think anybody that she was supposed to be meeting with was there because they early canceled. Michael Lamonaco, I think is how it's pronounced. He's a chef, and he worked at the Windows of the World. That was the big restaurant that was in the towers. He actually got there early too, like the other lady, and he broke his glasses while he was there, and he thought, well, I have enough time. So he ran down out of the tower. There along that street was some eyeglass doctors, and he went in to get it fixed, and it took just a little bit longer than what it should have. So he was down at the eye office while that happened. So one of the big ones, and if you look it up online, this is one of the stories that you're going to find about Jim Pierce. He was the managing director at AON. And he was supposed to have a meeting on the 105th on the South Tower. But they had so many people decide to come to this meeting that got too large. So they changed the meeting place last minute. And Pierce was in the South Tower and escaped. But 12 employees of his were on the top, and only one managed to escape. And the other 11 died, unfortunately. According to victim reports, around 200 people were on the floor that day, while another 200 were on the 78th floor sky lobby. There was another meeting on the 105th floor that day involving AON too. Only 7 escaped out of the 12 to 50 people, including Joseph Dittmar, who was another famous one that you can read about if you go and look up the personal stories of 9/11.
I've got another one to throw in. Are you good with it?
Go for it.
Okay, there's a lady named Brenda Christensen. She's from Southern California. And every single year she would go to New York City for work in the fall. And her first appointment was always at Twin Towers to meet with Wall Street Journal reporter for breakfast at 10 a.m. sharp. So this one particular year, she decided instead she was going to go on vacation at this time and reschedule these appointments. So instead of being in downtown Manhattan that year, she spent the night at a hotel in New Orleans for a stayover en route to meet her sister-in-law in Jamaica. And she woke up in the French Quarter and to this horrific news, didn't know if any of her colleagues or staff had made it, as they were near the towers at the time in Lower Manhattan. Luckily, they all did survive. And she felt like she had absolutely missed a lightning bolt. She did.
Yeah.
Percent did.
Most definitely. Jackie Chan. Everybody knows who Jackie Chan is. He was supposed to be filming stunts that day at the towers. They were getting ready to film a new movie. But instead, they changed their minds that morning and decided to ship him to Canada to go and do some work for the movie he'd just done, The Tuxedo. So he would have been right smack dab in the middle of all that. In Thorpe, he was an Olympic swimmer, or still is, I guess, decided to go to the World Trade Center to sightsee, but realized that he'd forgotten his camera, so he caught a cab to retrieve it from his hotel, and the first plane hit right before he got back. So he was actually en route. Patty Austin, who's a singer, was supposed to take Flight 93, but moved her travel plans to September 10th because her mom had had a sudden stroke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Julie Stauffer, she was on The Real World, MTV show. Supposed to be on American Airlines Flight 11, but got in a fight with her boyfriend right beforehand, and she missed the flight because of it. And then the last one I had that I thought was just amazing, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the towers themselves or the flights. Gaborni Sidby, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's an actress. She was actually a student at the Borough of Manhattan Community College at that time, and on the morning of September 11th, she accidentally slept in and missed her class. And she realized later on that debris from one of the towers, when it fell, hit the building she was supposed to be having class in, and it caused extreme damage and killed all the students inside and her teacher. She would have been sitting right in that class and would have gone too. Holy cow.
That's nuts.
It is. It's just crazy.
Mm.
But yeah, so I mean, and that's not even like a small percentage of the strangeness that occurred around this incident.
Enzo said lots of accidental oversleeping that morning. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on in the slides here. This is something that we talked about that we really wanted to, since we were talking about harbingers and things like that, there were so many photos that showed up of these demon-looking things in the clouds that were just wild.
Yeah. I actually didn't know about it. I think I'd seen like one face before, but Pam actually showed these to me earlier today. I had no idea. Look at this insanity. This one creeps me the heck out.
Freaking nuts. And this, I thought this was interesting. Let me find I've made some notes to go along with this. You can see the triangle face. And Somebody said that there is a scientific term for that too. Oh, two UTEP computer scientists explained that the face, through simple geometric analysis of the physics of smoke shapes after an explosion, is a cone with horizontal lines. Oh.
Hmm,
And it could be pareidolia.
it
Absolutely.
could be.
But yeah, it's still wicked looking.
It is. I don't know. I mean, some of these faces are so detailed.
Yeah. I remember
Now,
this one.
yeah. Like this one, I could imagine it might be pareidolia, but the one before that, I mean, you could even see the shape of the nose and how it would fall with the shadow. You know, the eyes are sunken back in. They're not just, two round dots there that would make you
No,
think
they're not the
eyes.
lines.
Yeah.
And the nose is not a straight line. It's more of a 3D
Hmm.
effect. Even the top lip it almost looks like a green man, except in smoke.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. This one looks more like the Halloween masks from the 60s of the devil.
Hmm.
I'm backing it up because I had some stories too that popped up. Pull my notes back up over here that I thought was kind of interesting. There's a couple of them. And it's more, this would have been after the fact. I know we were talking about people that missed and harbingers and stuff, but
Hmm.
there is a couple of paranormal stories that go along with it that I thought was pretty cool.
Do
Um,
tell.
so there's like a number of workers at the Fresh Kills landfill in Staten Island who were sifting through the rubble from the 9/11 attacks that reported seeing a female ghost holding a tray of sandwiches. And they thought she was trying to help them, because they were first responders. And that's from a retired NYPD lieutenant. She was solid. She was looked
Hmm.
very real until she wasn't there anymore. Um, and then there's a documentary, and I have a link to the YouTube video, and I'll put it in our show notes. Um, so in one documentary, the wife of one of the New York Fire Department firefighters from Tin House was in their home upstate New York watching this happen on the news. And she realized that this event was really serious and she should get ready and go on into the city. So she jumped in the shower and she left the bathroom door open so she could still hear the TV. And just as the North Tower collapsed, she said it felt like a hand grabbed the locket that her husband had given her on their wedding day and wrenched it off her neck. And the locket fell down in the shower floor. The chain was completely broken. And she said she knew right then that her husband had died. And the woman's name is Denise Olson, and her husband was Jeff Olson. So
Oh,
I'll make sure that
wow.
we have that. Yeah, remind me,
That
Jess, to put that video in.
that kind of reminds me, and this is a harbinger omen kind of thing. Jim Lovell, the astronauts that went up on Apollo 13,
Hmm.
his wife uh, reluctantly went to the launch, and like the night before, they are able to like kind of wave to their husbands beforehand and kind of tell them goodbye across the road. They keep them separated because of health reasons. They don't want any kind of contamination going up on the shuttle. But she had a horrible feeling. She went back to the hotel that night and her wedding ring went down the shower drain and she
Oh,
couldn't get it back. And she said she knew then something was not right.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, just fell off of her finger. She said a ring that she had to struggle to take off because it was a little bit small just fell right off her hand and went straight down the shower drain.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this one said one of my old coworkers used to tell a story about how when his company worked in the New World Trade Center, he and his coworkers would sometimes see what looked like people that were drenched in blood out of the corner of their eyes. And
Oh.
when they would turn to look straight on them, they would vanish, which we have heard of that. And I think we've all experienced that before too on our team
Mm-hmm.
is seeing something out of the corner of our eye. And then when you try to look at it head on, it's not there.
Yeah.
Um, And this one, a lot of these stories came from Reddit too, by the way. Um, this one says, my dad builds elevators, and his biggest project was with the New World Trade Center. So when they were building the museum, the overnight crew was working, and it was only one or two guys. And one of the guys heard two women just casually talking. He said that it sounded like they were right behind him, but it's 3 a.m. on a job site. And so he walks around and he calls out to his other coworker and he's like, "Hey, I'm hearing this. Are you hearing it?" And the other guy was like, "Yeah, I'm hearing it too." So they both started searching. They searched the entire place and found nothing. Now there are women that work in his dad's union, but it was only these two guys that were working that night shift. And they claimed the women were saying such things as, isn't it a nice day? And what do you want to do for lunch? It's pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much stuff happens. And we were actually talking about this too, about the fact that Pam's actually been to the
Mhm.
site. Did you want to talk about what that felt like for you?
Yeah, so what we did was they have double decker buses that you can tour the city in, and we were only there for one day, so we thought that would be our best bet to see the most sites the fastest. And so we were on the very top of it, and we weren't inside; we were outside of it. And when the bus gets to the area where the memorial garden is and everything, and let me back that up to show you guys. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so like in this picture right here, this is what it looks like now. This is the rebuilt version of the World Trade Center, and you'll see there's like this footprint here and this footprint here. That's where the original tower stood, and so they've made them into just a memorial, and they're actually infinity pools that fill with water. It's beautiful. But when we pulled up to it, it was such an overwhelming, yeah, you could feel it before you got near it. Just an overwhelming, sickening feeling in your chest, in your stomach. And I'm really glad that we did not plan on getting out and walking up to it. I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's just kind of how like hauntings occur. Places take on the energy that happened there. And if you have something so like cataclysmic happening, and can you imagine there was hundreds and hundreds of peoples in those tower, and each one of them are having their own version of horror.
Yeah.
Um uh Beyond just like I've got to get out of here, or I'm trapped, or there is nothing else for me to do but jump.
Yeah. That was a lot of what
And you're
happened.
saying goodbye to your entire family in your head. And there's some people who were instantaneously killed, and maybe their spirits were left behind wondering what the heck just happened. I don't understand what's going on. The buildings collapsing, that energy alone pounding down into the ground is going to leave a mark behind. The people that were on the planes, the people in the surrounding area, all the first responders coming in and how they were feeling, and a lot of those were lost too. So I mean, just the culmination of multitudes of feelings and being scared and
And the whole
horror.
city was in mourning and
Yeah.
still are to some extent, but those days right after were just absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Ian
So
said,
it's
"I visited the World Trade Center in '94. Queue was too long to go to the viewing deck. Lucky escape in hindsight." Was that the year that the truck bomb went off in the parking lot that was on the lower levels? I know it took out the subway station underneath it. I can't remember if it seems like it was '94. If it was, it was very close to '94. We were talking about that. I was telling you they were on Donahue. It was a daytime talk show host that was based right there in New York City. And he came in and was pulling people off the street that had just gone through this bombing. And they were like covered in soot and their hair was, some of it was singed and they were just shell shocked. And he's setting them on the stage saying, "So tell us what happened, tell us how it went, and blah, blah, blah." And it's like, that was crazy. Oh, Enzo said he visited in '85. I still have the travel brochure. Neat. Oh,
oh
I think
wow.
you have showed it. Yeah. It had the Twin Towers on it. That's wild.
Yeah. But yeah, places like that are just marked forever after that. I've been to Dachau and Auschwitz, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I believe everybody should go because things like that forgotten can only lead to something very horrible. Everybody should know what happened there, but oh my goodness, it's just think of your worst day of depression and quadruple it and
So
add a layer of clouds and
it makes me sick that there's people that are trying to naysay that the Holocaust ever happened.
oh
Absolutely happened.
yeah.
Um, I have another story here on that, on some of the paranormal stuff that happened. So there's a YouTube video, and I have the link to that one we can put in the show notes too. It's of a little boy who swears he was in the Twin Towers and died on 9/11 in his previous life.
Oh
And
wow.
he's allegedly been saying weird stuff about 9/11 from the time he was verbal, and always had this discomfort with flying on planes with his family. So apparently he even spit out the name of who he was in this past life, but his parents were keeping it confidential so as not to freak family out, really upset some people. Um, but there has been, and if you look around on, I'm not going to say it here, but if you are that interested, you can look online and find out. There's quite a few websites that state who the child thinks he was. And it's pretty amazing that would happen. But it kind of makes sense. We have heard a lot of stories about reincarnation and about children having memories of their past lives for quite a while. So
Yeah.
pretty neat. Now there is a story from Flight 93, which is the one that landed in the field in Pennsylvania, or that was crashed into the field in Pennsylvania. And this is someone that worked there, and she got into a long conversation with one of the guards, and the guards told her that other employees have like ghost stories, that they're hearing voices, they're hearing plates smash, they're seeing lights, and there's apparently a lot of energy that's around the memorial. It's kind of like the Twin Tower site where it's a very heavy feeling, and there's a big boulder that they've placed that marks the location of the impact point. You can't walk up to it, but you can see it from the gate that keeps people away from that area. But it's kind of like this. You can feel it before you even get there. And it's awful, awful, awful.
That's terrible.
Mhm. That's all the paranormal stories I have.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many more stories. We can't go into them all. I mean, just like the singular stories, just like everyday people, and how they managed to escape this. And there's actually some stories about some people that weren't supposed to be there that suddenly were and perished in the building. So,
Yeah, there's some opposites for sure. Alicia
yeah.
said, I went to New York City a few years after 9/11, but before the new towers were built. A friend and I were walking downtown and came upon it, and there was a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach when I realized you absolutely can feel it
Hmm.
when she realized what it was. Yeah, I would agree with that. I experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to talk about that one in regards to?
I think we're good for now. Pam and I discussed this earlier. There is so much more to 9/11, the conspiracies and more paranormal and stuff like that. We may here in the future do a show just on 9/11, legend, lore, and conspiracy, because there's a lot to it. If we continue on with it now, this is going to be like a 5-part series. So,
Easily could be.
yeah.
I did want to say something about it before we move on. Let me pull up I switched notes around already. Let me pull it back up. Something I don't think we said, but I think we need to just for posterity is, so when this happened, it was September 11th, 2001. And when that happened, there were 35,000 people that worked in the towers, and there were 430 companies that had their offices there. So when this happened, there were around 17,000 people in the buildings when they were hit with the planes. Most of them were able to get out safely. But as they rushed out, first responders were rushing in. That included firemen, police officers, and other volunteers that were trying to help people get out. But the buildings were very damaged. And before they could get everyone out, they did collapse. And There was 2,753 people that were reported missing after the attacks. And they still, to this day, continue to process remains. There are 1,106 victims whose remains are unidentified at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we're nearly two decades later, but they're still working to do it. And the World Trade Center complex that we showed the picture of, it opened in 2014. And if you want to learn more about it, there is a 911memorial.org. It has a lot of really great information on
Yeah.
it. Okay.
All right. Let's move along.
Here we go into another heavy hitter. If you're not familiar with this one, this is the Alfred P. Murrah Building, and it
Mm-hmm.
is located in downtown Oklahoma City, and it is the site of the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
And this was one of the worst ones. It was the worst up until 9/11.
Yeah. This one doesn't have very many stories with it, and that's just for the fact that there wasn't an extraordinary amount of people that worked in this building, and a lot of them weren't there that day. It was like an off day for some of the businesses and stuff that were inside. I have a couple of stories that I dug up, and one of them is the one that kind of inspired in to want to hear more. So I went back and found the original story. Now, I'm not going to give out personal names on this. I did on the last one because they were kind of celebrities. Everybody kind of knows their name. You can look them up. On this one, the couple of stories that I have are personal stories by everyday people that just work there. So I'm not going to give you their names. The first one that I found, and it's the one that triggered in to want to hear more about this stuff. The morning before this happened, a gentleman who worked, I believe, on the third floor of this building towards the front, right where the bulk of the explosion happened at. He got up just like normal, like he did every morning, and he had a morning routine that he said took 45 minutes exactly. He would get up, use the bathroom, wash up, change his clothes, go get his coffee, have a little breakfast, watch the news a little bit, and then he was in his car and off on his way. And it only took him 10 minutes from his apartment to the Murrah building, to the parking garage there to get in. And he did everything like clockwork that morning. Everything went fine. He left the apartment on time. He got in his car, and he was about partway to the Murrah building when the radio came up that there had been an explosion downtown. And he was listening to this going, "Oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be downtown. Is this happening where I'm supposed to be?" And pretty soon he did find out, yes, it was the Murrah building. However, he looked down to note the time to figure out what it was he was going to do, if he needed to call or what was happening. And he realized that it was 2 hours past the time that he was supposed to have gone into work. He'd literally lost 2 hours of time somewhere between his apartment building and the Murrah building out on the open highway in Oklahoma City. He still to this day doesn't know how that was a possibility. He said never did he skip forward, or there's no way he drove for 2 hours.
No, not in Oklahoma City for sure. That is crazy.
Yeah. He ended up turning around and going home because he had an upset stomach and he didn't feel well, which is something that happens to you when you go through time storms, I might add. You can get sick from it. He couldn't call in to work because the entire building was down. Did you pull that picture that I sent you of the Murrah after it exploded? Yeah, as you can see here, he worked on the third floor, almost dead center in the building, right near the exact detonation spot from when the van
It's
exploded.
very close to where the ladder is on that ladder truck.
Yes. I believe he was only one floor up from the nursery. There was a daycare center in this building, and I think they lost all but one or two of the children.
17 children. And that was pretty much All of them, majority of them, sure.
Yeah.
Awful.
There is one more story that I found. There was a lady that worked more towards the top of the building, but she was also towards the front. And she was supposed to be in early that morning too. And she got down and her brand new car wouldn't start in her garage. Brand new car. It was only a week old. She couldn't get it to start, and it just so happened that all the people that she knew were not available to get her a ride. And by the time she got around to thinking, well, I'll just call a cab, the news started coming across that the building had been bombed. So can you imagine that, your brand new car? I didn't find anything else if she ever, like, if she had it checked up and found out if there was something actually wrong with it, or if maybe it just started up like normal, like it should have afterwards. Something intervened that day to have a brand new car not start.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I know it
Uh,
blew this. You can tell by looking at it how bad the blast was. It blew windows out of buildings for blocks and blocks around it.
mhm.
In fact, if you look at the building up behind it, you can see all the windows are out.
Yeah. It was terrible.
I remember
If you get,
that. Ugh.
yeah. I was in class when it happened, and I remember it vividly because there was another teacher at my high school. I saw her run down the hallway past our room, the room that I was in at the time, and I found out later on that her father worked in the building. Her classroom said she didn't even say anything to him. She saw it because at our high school, we used to let the TVs run on the news. If they're, especially during midday when the regular news came on, the teachers would just turn them on and turn them down low. So we actually kind of saw this go live. And she just ran, and I found out later that her father worked in the building. And I believe he's one of the ones that didn't make it.
I've heard you've told me that
Yeah.
story. It's terrible.
Um, I mean, this is kind of close to Pam and I. It's Oklahoma City is
About 3 hours.
not that, yeah, it's about 3 hours. It's not far away. And just about everybody in the area knows somebody who was there or is a relative of or a friend of. So it's kind of near and dear to our hearts. And I remember for a couple of days after this happened, I worked studiously in our home ec room at the high school, making little paw covers for the rescue dogs because they were getting cut on all the glass. They were having to trade dogs out. They would literally go in for just a few minutes and then they were too cut up to work anymore. And so anyone in our high school that could sew was in the home ec room making boxes and boxes of like dog booties. Yeah.
So I did find a little bit of info on this. The bombing itself did kill 167 people.
Hmm.
That did include 19 children. So there were 19 children that perished in that. It injured
Yeah.
another 684. And then there was also a rescue worker that was killed after the bombing when debris struck her in the head. So these guys, it was the bombers was Timothy James McVeigh and the other guy. Oh, what was his name? Lost his name. Goodness. I had it
Yeah.
right.
I lost his name too.
Terry Nichols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry Nichols.
Timothy McVeigh was executed by lethal injection, and that happened just 6 years after the bombing, which is lightning speed, pretty much.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Terry Nichols is in prison in Colorado to this day. He would have got the death penalty, but the state jury deadlocked on it. So he was convicted of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and 8 counts of involuntary manslaughter for killing federal law enforcement personnel. And he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And then he was also tried and convicted in Oklahoma on state charges of murder in connection with the bombing. And in 2004, he was convicted of 161 counts of first-degree murder, including 1 count of fetal homicide and 1 of first-degree arson and conspiracy. So he will never get out of jail, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
He shared a cell block that's he was on a one that's or he is on one that's commonly referred to as Bombers Row. And he's on there with Ramsey Youssef and Eric Rudolph, and he was with Ted Kaczynski as well until Ted was transferred out in 2021. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a thing to
Well,
be.
frankly, McVeigh, I'm shocked that he wasn't lynched. So how it went down with him, he did this and then just drove away. And he was picked up, I think it was later on that day, by a police officer in another smaller town because he was speeding. And they pulled him in at that little small town, and word got around that it was him. And the townspeople and people from hundreds of miles came into this small town to surround the courthouse. If and it's a little place, they didn't have a ton of security there. I am shocked that a lynch mob didn't form and they didn't drag his butt out of there. So many people lost their lives and the kids. And to top that off, there was kind of a tragedy within the tragedy. Partway through the morning after the initial explosion happened and the first responders got on, there was a rumor that there was another bomb getting ready to
Yeah.
detonate. It forced all the responders to leave. They pulled them blocks and blocks away just in case. And a lot of people lost their lives then because they only had so long to get them out before they were going to perish. People were getting crushed. One lady was hanging upside down and she almost didn't make it just for the blood rushing to her head. So, how many lives did we lose because there was that extra added time when the so-called secondary bomb was supposed to go off? It's terrible.
I ran across something else that I thought was interesting, and this showed up in the federal paperwork. I can't think of what it's
Mm-hmm.
called in the documents. It talked about the fact that there were 8 amputated legs found, but
Mm-hmm.
only 7 people had amputations of legs
Ooh.
out of that. And the leg that they found, it was to a white man, and it they tried to say it was for the there was a African American lady that did lose her leg. They tried to say it was hers and close the case on it, but there was numerous reports from different people that said it was the leg of a white man, and
Mm.
it had tons of plastic embedded in it, the blue plastic like from the detonation, and
Mm-hmm.
it also had military fatigues on it. So they
Oh.
don't know if maybe it was somebody that was in the back of the van or the truck. And
Yeah.
there's something we didn't talk about too. There's actually some Kansas connections with this,
Mm-hmm.
because Timothy and Terry Nichols actually lived in a little town called Harrington, Kansas, which Jess and I have been through before.
Yeah.
And they packed the Ryder van at Gary Lake, which is only like 20 miles away from
Yeah.
there. And then Timothy, well, they both did. They drove it down to Oklahoma City. So they came right through our town
Yeah.
because we're on the highway that goes straight down
Mm-hmm.
to Oklahoma
Yeah.
City.
And in fact, that they rented the Ryder van in Harrington, Kansas, and that's how they figured out who it was because they found parts of the van still that was identifiable enough for them to trace it back to that place, and they were able to identify. And Timothy McVeigh actually signed his real name on the form to rent it. So that's how they found him quite so quickly.
And I want to back up a little bit in our comments over here. I think, I'm assuming it's Capella because I know she was over there not too long ago, but Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong. Capella said that when I visited, is it Dachau?
Dachau.
Dachau, thank you. There was an old
Hmm.
guy there telling about the furnace and how they burned the bodies. Um, Found out he had been a prisoner there and came every day to tell the visitors about it.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Mhm. Sharon said she knew someone that went to Oklahoma City to help.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, if you're from within 200 miles, you know somebody who was connected with it somehow. So it's very close to
Oh, it
home.
was Stacy. Yeah,
Oh,
Stacy went in 1996. Wow,
okay.
that's wild. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Crazy, crazy. Okay. Is there
Yep.
anything else you want to say about that one? Are we good?
No, no, let's move along. This is all very sad.
Oh, hang on. I did want to back up because I skipped
Oh,
this one
okay.
to go to their pictures. This is what the memorial looks like today. And
Yeah.
an artist came in, and the chairs that you see are one represents for every person that was lost in the bombing. And this is the memorial. It sets on the footprint of where the Alfred P. Murrah building was. I did go there. I don't remember how many years ago it was. Eric was pretty small. So it's been probably 15 years ago, maybe. Um, but it was the same thing again. Jess and I were talking about this backstage. I did halfway okay until we got to the lower level where they have memorials for each of the people that were lost. And there's like it's like encased in glass, and like for the kids, that's the one that really got me. They have like little toys and things of theirs that are
Mm-hmm.
that are there to memorialize them. I had to leave. I could not do that.
Yeah.
But
It's hard.
it's very hard, but it's I believe it's a necessary thing
Yeah.
that
It's
keep
very
that
necessary.
absolute. Okay,
Yeah.
moving along.
Yeah. All right. Oh, that's not it yet.
What?
Should be Air India flight
Oh, they're not
171.
together then. Okay, hang on. There it is.
There we go. All right. So this is the next one I was going to talk about. Everybody should kind of know this one. There was actually some details kind of looked at between this and 9/11 with how airplanes land in buildings. I'm just going to leave that there because that's going into conspiracy theory now. So in this crash, I'm not going to go into details because everybody kind of knows the story behind it. But
This
there
is really
were,
recent, wasn't
yeah, it's not that long ago.
it? June
There
12th
was, yeah,
is what I
June
have
12th.
of
Yeah.
2024. So just a few days ago, honestly. What, 6 days ago?
Yeah. So there were 7 people on this flight that were due to fly that had all sorts of things go down that kept them from it. And they're calling them the Amazing Seven. So I thought it was quite appropriate for this. And I'm just going to go over the 7 really quick. We're not going to linger for extraordinarily long on this one, but it's just kind of amazing how fate kind of steps in sometimes. One, a mother had a bad feeling and cried until they canceled it. Their mother was like, I don't want you on that plane. I just feel bad about it. So
Oh,
they canceled it. Another couple was supposed to get on there, but there was discrepancies in their paperwork and their flight stuff, and they would not let them on. They said they left mad, but were quite happy afterwards that
yeah.
the crew had not let them on board. Another one just had a horrible sense of unease, went back and forth, and finally, ultimately, that morning just canceled the flight. Another one, a traffic jam, a detour, and a subsequent traffic bottleneck made them over an hour late, so they didn't get on.
You know, their
Um,
guardian angels were like in
yeah, they were
overtime,
like
kind
just throwing everything. Like, okay, you got through that. Well, I'm stopping you here.
of.
Yeah. Another one had multiple delays at work that made them cancel their ticket at the very last minute. Another one was due to fly home with a son in law after the funeral of their daughter,
Yeah.
but couldn't make it. And unfortunately, his son in law died on that. So he had just buried his daughter, and then he had to bury his son in law on top of that. And then the 7th one couldn't find their travel visas. Once they got to the airport, they went to go through and they couldn't find their travel visas, so they wouldn't allow them on board. Travel visas they claimed they'd had in their bags when they left. So,
That's crazy. That's the
yeah.
ones I found the exact same ones. That must, as far as I know, these are the only 7 that didn't make it on because these are
Yeah.
the same exact ones I found.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you can move on to the fourth one we have here.
Which one is it? So I know.
The West Side Baptist Church.
Okay.
Okay, this one's quite a bit older, but I thought it was extraordinarily interesting, and I didn't actually know about this until we started looking into this. You know, these near miss type of fate situations. This is the West Side Baptist Church explosion. It happened in Beatrice, Nebraska, March 1st, 1950. So, the extraordinary thing about this is that over 35 people who were supposed to be at this church all had separate things come up that made them late. It's extraordinary. So, it was, I believe it was a Wednesday night, and they were supposed to be having their weekly choir practice. There were 35 some choir members. There was a choir mistress that would have led them. There was a organist, and there was a janitor that came to unlock and then relock back up when they were done. And every Wednesday they would have a choir practice at 7:20 exactly, and they were all known for being extraordinarily prompt. But this one day on March 1st, something happened to each one of them that made them each 10 minutes late. At 7:25, the boiler exploded, and you can see what it did to this church. It literally took down every wall.
Yeah,
It gutted it. And that entire choir and the janitor and the choir mistress and the organist all showed up 5 minutes later to see this. So something intervened in 35 plus lives that day to make them all 10 minutes late.
I think it's really interesting. Some of I did find a listing of kind of what happened to not all of them, but some of them. So, like the minister, his wife and daughter were delayed by a dress that needed ironing at the last minute. Others were late because they paused to complete homework, finish a letter, or hear the end of a favorite radio show. One woke late from a nap, and some of the others could think of no special reason. They were just late. Just late. Pretty wild. Yeah, and that one actually showed up on Snopes as verified. A verified story that these were the specific situations that happened. But the blast was so, you can tell by the building it was bad, but it was so strong it forced a nearby radio station off the air and shattered windows in surrounding homes. It was a pretty good blast.
Yeah, those boilers, holy cow! And I believe that one ran off of gas too, so it just
dang,
wow.
They're lucky something else didn't explode in town then.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Very lucky.
I was going to point out, Sharon said in the comments, and I think this is going back, correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, back to the Oklahoma City bombing. She said it was in a boot. He stepped over the axle from the truck. Is that the amputated leg that they found? Is that what you're talking about? I kind of think it might be, but correct me if I'm wrong. That's not what that was.
It looks like that's what, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you have any more of like the big ones? Or are you ready to move on to Harbingers?
Let me double check. I think that's what I had on the big ones. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait, hang on. What do I have here? Oh.
I don't know.
I'm going to step back to the Oklahoma City bombing again. I had one paranormal thing that I did find on it.
Oh, go for it.
So on the 4th floor of the Southwestern Bell's bomb shattered plant, basically is how they describe this. It's like 1.5 blocks from where the federal building once stood. There's a lady named Judith Huntington, and she has heard low rumblings, murmurs, voices floating in the white noise of the telephone company's machinery, and she's heard them call her name. So she's also seen them when she's been alone late at night in the boarded up facility. They move like human-sized shadows, and they look blurry, like they're wavy steam. Like, if you'd see steam pouring out of a vent, a cooling vent, that's kind of what they look like. But there was at one point where she glimpsed a woman's face, and it was so vivid that it knocked her to the ground. And the management was like, hey, we're way past this bombing. Everybody needs to get over it, basically. But she had to leave that job because of the situation. And that was after nearly 2 decades of perfect attendance.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the one story that I found on it, but I thought it was really fascinating enough to talk about. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's the biggies that I had on that.
All right. Well, then let's move on to some harbingers. And that won't say that we won't touch back on some of these, or maybe if we find more as we're doing more research. So we could at any time.
These are
So
a little
we're going to,
I went back to this one.
yeah, that's fine. Okay, so the biggest harbinger of them all, the most famous one, especially here in the States, is of course our beloved Mothman. In fact, oh, I remembered to grab my Mothman ears.
Nice.
I can't. We'll get it on there, like that.
There you
Da,
go.
da, da, da. Okay, I can't
Fabulous.
do that. Yeah. Anywho, everybody knows Mothman is my favorite. But you can always learn, and I actually learned about a couple other things that he's kind of attached to, he or she or whatever it is. And a lot of these are crazy, but we're going to start off with actually, before we hit September 11th, can you go just to the Silver Bridge and we'll start out at the beginning?
Sure.
Yeah, so 1966 through 1967 was the what people think is the original Mothman flap. We have since learned that Mothman was seen much earlier in other situations. But this is the one he's famous for, especially made famous by the Mothman Prophecies movie with Richard Gere in it. This that you're seeing on the screen, and if you're listening, is a picture of the Silver Bridge collapsed already. Some say that he was a harbinger leading up to this. I'm not so sure that he was the harbinger to this because he was spotted after this too. It continued on. I think maybe it was just kind of a part of all the insanity that was going on at the time. I might be wrong though. This happened on December 15th, 1967, of course, in West Virginia. It took down 46 people with it.
Awful.
And there were precognitive dreams and things that happened prior to this. One lady had dreams of seeing Christmas presents in the water, which absolutely made sense because it was right before Christmas happened and people had been out Christmas shopping, and the cars that went into the water were loaded with gifts. There were lots of places to shop in the city across the bridge, and they were coming back into town in the evening from having gone and done their shopping. So there's that one.
Awful.
Yeah.
But if you're not familiar with the Mothman story, you can find tons and tons and tons and tons of information online and in books and in movies and everywhere.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a look because it's a fascinating story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Sharon said, yes, my friend stepped over the axle of the Ryder truck. So it wasn't the leg that they found. He actually, when he was assisting to pull people out, he stepped over the axle of the Ryder truck. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, they said it flung it like really far away from the building, so which it would have. Makes sense. All right. So let's move on to, what do you have up next?
Do you want me to go back to the 9/11 one, and then we can move the other direction from there?
You can, if you want. We can move to the 9/11 one.
There we go.
Yeah. So this photo was taken down near the downtown area, and I believe there's one more photo taken by someone else somewhere else, but it's just the faintest dot in the sky, and you can't really tell if it's anything more than just debris. However, this was taken just right after the towers had fallen, and of course shows what looks exactly like a Mothman. A lot of people were calling it an angel. However, if you kind of look up close to it, it's completely pitch black. Its wings are not very angelic. They're more bat-like. And it was reported by a few other people who did not take photos of it, but reported having seen somebody flying around the buildings with wings. I don't know how it gets any more Mothman than that. So, uh, Mothman itself has taken on a harbinger type situation. He's been spotted before so many cataclysmic man made disasters, Mother Nature made disasters. We're going to touch on quite a few of them. Do you want to move to the next one you've got?
Yeah, sorry. I
No, it's
had
fine.
a child text me right in the middle of it. Okay. So before we move on, everybody take a really good look at that creature that we see right there, because we're going to show one later that's not as clearly defined as this, but it looks a lot like this. And you'll see what we mean when we get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Russian
All right.
apartment bombings.
Yes. Ignore the little word that says text right in the middle of the picture. I was going through these very quickly trying to name them for Pam, and I left a little text bar up that.
I figured that's what it was.
Yes. So this is from the 1999 Russian apartment bombings. This happened to 5 different apartment buildings through 3 different cities. I can't even remember how many died. Oh, more than 300 and injuring over 1,000 people. Um, they actually figured out it was ordered by Islamist warlords. That whole debacle was going down at the time. However, while this was going on in 3 different cities, the week prior, they started having Mothman sightings. Now, of course, they didn't call them Mothman; they were calling it the Flying Man, or the Black Bat, and it was described just as Mothman is: no neck, all black, bat-like wings, arms and legs like a man, red glowing eyes. And it was also seen flying over these buildings after they had been bombed. So in and out of the smoke. So we have an entire other set across 3 cities all at the same time. That's extraordinary. That's almost as if there's more than one Mothman.
Yeah. And I ran across the fact that it was described as having huge bat like wings, the red luminescent eyes, and a high pitched scream, characteristics generally shared with the U.S. Mothman. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. And it did
Yeah.
appear multiple times. But they didn't, there was no account of how many actual times it was reported. And there's
Yeah.
also been reports of phone calls from unknown persons that were uh, with warnings related to this, but it's not know if they were truly related to Mothman or not.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. You don't realize how far it extends out until you really start digging in.
Mhm. Pretty
All right.
great. Okay, the next one.
All right. This one I thought was extraordinary. And I am going to give you a heads up. So, this is the Karuna train station. This is in Sweden. This happened back in 1915. That's why the photos are so old. If you go and look this up, the first thing you're going to find are these photos, only with Mothman kind of impressioned over the top of them. I was almost fooled myself, and I was like, they look so cheesy. There's an artist somewhere who does this. He takes antique photos and kind of puts an impression of whatever was supposed to be happening there at the time. It's his artsy way of doing things. So if you see those are not real. They didn't get a photo of Mothman himself over this building. Just so you know.
Man, that
So,
bird
like I said,
round, didn't it?
yeah, you did. So this is a small mining town called Karuna, Sweden. And this happened on April 26, 1915. They were extraordinarily proud of this train station that you see here. You can see all of them standing outside of it there. They started getting multiple sightings of a man-like bird, is what they called it in the area. They said it had no neck, it had red glowing eyes, and they dubbed it Varsafagal or Varsafagal, which means omen bird. Because on April 26th, the entire train station just caught fire and it burnt to the ground so fast. And they said they watched the Varsafagal fly through the smoke and around it all day long while it burnt. Could you imagine how scary that would be?
Yeah. That would be for sure.
Yeah.
We haven't
So
heard
yeah.
from Ian lately. I wonder if he's already ripped from all the times we've mispronounced stuff. Oh,
Well, I do know it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning where he is,
that's
so he
true.
might have
That's
already headed off to bed. But yeah, I don't blame him.
true.
He can listen back to it later when he gets back up again.
Do it on the weekend in case you do have to drink every time we mispronounce. All right, the next one is the Chernobyl disaster, Mothman. This one's
Yes. So this one is a little steeped in rumor. A lot of people claim that Mothman was seen prior to this and flying through the debris and the smoke plume afterwards. Later on, Rich Haddam, he's the producer and director of the Mothman prophecies. It was mentioned in the movie that Mothman was seen over Chernobyl, and he claims that he knew nothing of that, that it was just made up to progress the movie, to make the movie sound creepier. However, there is evidence to show that there was something similar reported before even the movie was made. So I think there's probably some truth to it, and I think the writers for the movie just grasped onto that because everybody knows Chernobyl. It was such a huge thing. To attach Mothman to it would have been extraordinarily ominous. So I think they probably heard word that there might have been a connection there and just ran with it. So
Most
I'm not going to say whether it's true or not. However, and this happened back in 1986,
mhm.
workers at the plant and several townspeople reported seeing a large, dark, headless creature with giant wings and fire red eyes. The rescue pilots reported seeing a creature flying through the plumes and smoke over the reactor. Witnesses reported weird sounds and phone calls they were receiving afterwards. Very John Keel like. If you watch the Mothman's prophecies, they also allude to the weird phone calls and the sounds that would come through those weird dreams. Yeah.
I ran across that too. And it mentions the phone calls. Those who were unlucky enough to witness the creature reported horrible dreams and ominous phone calls from the KGB.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, Ian said he is still here, just not much humor to be had in these stories. Boy, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Enzo said the phone calls is very kill. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I
Extraordinary.
think everybody more than likely is familiar with what happened at Chernobyl. It was April 26th, 1986. The operators were given the go ahead to test their reactor by the Soviet government, and the test was aimed to determine how long the spinning generator could continue to generate energy after the reactor was turned off before slowing down and ceasing to do so. It went awry, pretty much, and it melted down, and I can't remember how many miles radius. Is it a 20-mile radius?
It's
But
something extraordinary. Yeah.
is to this day absolutely highly radioactive. No one
Hmm.
can live there. There's some really interesting that's another fun one we should look at doing sometime is maybe on Chernobyl and the animals and things that are there, that how incredibly they um, have survived and thrived, and they're different. There's some genetic things that are wrong with them, DNA things that have changed,
Yeah.
but you
I
know,
know there's a type of, I think it's like kind of similar to an American daisy. It's a white flower, simple flower with a yellow middle, but it's growing petals out of its stem. It
yeah.
grows normally up top, but then there's like 3 or 4 petals that just grow on its stem somewhere because the radiation has messed with its genetics.
Alicia said, "Wait, was the fire and Chernobyl the same day but different years?" No, it was the same year, same day, same
Yeah.
year.
Yep.
Yeah, it reacted and melted down the same day. Enzo said, "I knew guys in the Air Force that had to decontaminate some of our aircraft because they flew through the radioactive cloud." Yes,
Oh, yeah.
and my ex-husband is Dutch, and that all uh, that cloud went south basically, and some of the fallout was in their area. And they always had to make sure that they were tested for issues with their thyroids. Thyroid cancer was the big thing, and he did have to go on thyroid medication. So I don't know how related it was, but um, oh, the fire at the train station. Oh, I don't know. Was it the same day? It's different
Oh, I don't
years.
know.
I didn't notice that. If it is, that was a good catch.
I don't know.
To look back at my notes. Let me check.
I'm not sure.
Because that was April 26th. And oh, that's the one you would have it, Jess. I don't have notes on that one. On the train station fire.
Oh,
Have a date on it?
I don't have it either.
Okay.
So we'll have to look that up and come back in the second one and give her some information.
Yeah. Oops. Oh, Enzo said, was it a number station?
I think he was, yeah, I think he was retorting to N.
Oh, Ian said, I imagine the Duga 3 radio or radar station near Chernobyl had weird effects on electrical systems. It was known as the Russian woodpecker because of issues with the AM radio across Europe. Oh, interesting.
It is. Yeah. Like Pam said, Chernobyl is its own beast. That might be a whole other show.
Because there's some crazy, crazy stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Okay, the
All
next
right.
Indian Ocean earthquake / tsunami, Mothman.
Yeah, so this happened, of course, in 2004. This one killed approximately 227,898, they believe. They don't have a full count. And of course, it spanned 14 countries just from the tsunami alone. And Mothman was highly seen 1 week out from this, and 1 day afterwards. He hung around for a day and then vamoosed. He was most spotted along the coast where the tsunami hit the hardest, and it was the same as everywhere. He was a big flying man with big black wings, big red eyes, no neck, and squealed.
Yeah. Which
The
goes
squeal.
along with the scream, that they talked about in Russia, the screaming.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Enzo said that was a bad one. Some of the smaller villages were simply erased. They were. And there was actually a tribe, I'm pulling this from my memory from when this happened, that was native to the area, that when the earthquake happened, they knew from tradition to head as high up as they could possibly go. And they survived because they went to the mountaintop
Yeah.
as they were taught through oral tradition to do.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. If you're ever on the beach and suddenly the ocean is not there, get the heck out of Dodge.
yeah, no joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it pulls back, don't go, ooh, you can see boats out there. Get out of the area.
Yeah, run.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. Okay, and this is the Fukushima disaster. This is from Japan.
Yeah. Of course, Fukushima included not only the earthquake that caused the tsunami, but then the nuclear plant meltdown that soon followed. They had multiple reports of a huge flying man creature with 2 legs, 2 arms, and no neck, with a 15-foot wingspan, reported over the course of 2 weeks before the earthquake. He was also seen flying over the reactors and flying towards the plant. There's a particular story that I found. I'm not going to tell it in full here, but I'll just touch on it. About, I believe it was 24 hours before the reactors went. This gentleman was on the other side of this island, and it was nighttime, and he watched this gigantic birdman thing come
Yeah.
up out of the ocean, fly up over his head, and shot straight towards the reactors in the sky. And that guy then at that moment knew something that was some kind of an omen. He could feel it, that something was getting ready to go down. I think it was a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
That I believe that same night it was spotted by a couple of two couples that were out on like dates. They spotted him shoot across the sky over the top of their heads, heading towards the reactors. So,
Yeah, there's
if
a
that's not a
gentleman
warning.
named Marcus. He said he heard whooshing noises and a tremendous screaming one night
Mm.
and what appeared to be a shadow. And the creature spread its wings. It flew 25 to 30 feet high and flew 4 or 5 circles around the nuclear plant.
Yeah.
So, but he did report red eyes that did not blink on this thing
Mm-hmm.
too. So that sounds very, very Mothman-esque.
Very Mothman.
And I had a couple of more from Japan too. One of them
Okay.
I could not find a photo for, but the other one I did. This one's called the Ichigo Mothman. And he's a winged cryptid that was reported from Niigata Prefecture, Japan. Uh, and the name, the Ichigo Mothman, means Mothman of Niigata Prefecture. I guess that's terrible pronunciation, I'm sure. Ichigo is the old name for Niigata Prefecture. And yeah, that was a very short and sweet one on that one, but I thought it was important
Mm-hmm.
to include in this. And the way it was reported was there was a junior high school student who was riding his bicycle to school when he noticed a strange creature flying from north to south in the western sky. It looked to be a very large bird, but it had no head and was very stoutly built. Based on its features, he thought it could be a heron or an owl, but none of those images matched what he saw. So it sounded when he did the report, people that heard it likened it more to Mothman in stature. And the other one is the Kyoto Mothman. So if you think back to the photo that I said to make sure you remember what it looked like from 9/11.
9/11.
Yeah. This one isn't nearly as clear, but it's obviously you can see something. You just can't tell what it is. But the report came in that around 8 a.m. On an April morning in 2011, a toy producer named Ryo Anzai casually took a series of photos of the sky. And when he went back to check them, he found out what appeared to be a black flying creature in them. And he was able to guess its movement from the series of photos, but it was moving in a very strange way. Um, and this one ended up being, he wasn't the only one that saw it. Others saw it. He was the only one that ended up catching a picture of it. But he didn't know if he got anything until he realized there were other reports of this. And so, he did the, hey, is this what you saw? They were like, yes, that's it. So that's when they knew for sure that he had got something. And that is all I had on those two.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
All right. So if you're able to see this right now, I apologize. There's actually no known picture for this incident, so I went ahead and made one. Kind of cool. This is a very interesting story, though. Yet another one I'd never heard of, and I was so excited when I found it. So this is on the Freiberg mine in Germany. This happened September 10th, 1978. Several miners reported seeing what they thought was a large man doing something at the mouth of the mine that they were heading to that morning to work in. When they got closer, two giant wings unfurled from the being, who they realized wasn't human, but a strange being. He let out a sound like 50 people screaming. They retreated a ways back watching, and suddenly there was a horrible explosion deep in the mine. They rushed towards the entrance to find that being gone and a huge plume of fire and smoke billowing from the entrance. Authorities stated all 36 men would have lost their lives if they had entered the mine on time. Note, and I wrote this little note to myself, nearly all men lost their jobs 6 months later due to mental instability. The men began calling it the Freiberg Shrieker, and they all started having weird people show up at their house. They were getting strange messages. They were hearing weird sounds. And I think all but two lost their jobs and just ended up nuttier than all get out. John Keel effect, in my opinion. But this is so well known in that area. They still call him to this day the Freiburg Shrieker. It's their Mothman.
Yes.
Yeah. I just thought it was extraordinary. But like I said, no picture. So you're welcome if you can see this now. It's terrible.
Not that bad. And Enzo said, thumbs up. Looks good, Jess.
Oh, thank you. All
All right.
right. So I have a few more that we don't have pictures for. I'm just going to go over real quick because he's seen way more than this. In 2009, in Chihuahua, Mexico, many witnesses reported a black-colored giant winged man creature with bloodshot eyes that would chase vehicles and watch them through their windows while they drove. He actually would fly beside them and look in their windows.
Yikes.
Creepy. Yeah. Um, they didn't. No huge cataclysm could be found afterwards until the start of the outbreak of the N1H1 swine flu broke out right there in that area. That was
Ooh.
the beginning of it. Yeah.
Okay.
The 2017 Mexican earthquake, it killed hundreds of people. Multiple sightings of a huge winged creature with shiny red eyes reported in the weeks prior to it. The 2023 wildfires in Maui, Hawaii. Several locals and tourists reported encountering a tall, dark figure with wings and glowing eyes near the forested areas that later were wiped out by the fires.
Yep.
And then, of course, we're going to come to the Chicago sightings. Now, I'm going to mention the Chicago sightings because there is so many of them and they're still ongoing.
Yes.
Yet there has not been any kind of cataclysm or man-made accident yet. Not saying that there's not going to be. I hope there's not.
Maybe it's
The
like a
most,
form or something.
I don't know. It's the most sightings that's ever been reported. I think we're up to 81 confirmed. And if you go by the Brian Terrell effect, how many is that? Around 800 or so
Yeah.
actual sightings would have happened.
For
There's
everyone,
only
10 that
10 that aren't
are
reported.
reported.
Yeah. And the last one I could find, I thought this one was kind of exciting. I went to like Reddit and was kind of looking to see if I could find some personal stories attached to these bigger ones. I couldn't find a whole lot. I did, however, find a lot of people across the boards mentioning having seen Mothman at Lake Pleasant, Arizona, just a
Oh,
few days ago.
really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
So I started typing in, Lake Pleasant, Arizona, Mothman or bat, like sightings, and I
Mhm.
started finding more and more, and I found the earliest one in a the end of February. I started seeing him pop up in the area. So I started looking around to see if there was like a major cataclysm there or something. There wasn't, but there was something else entirely. So this lake is suddenly known for the extraordinary amount of deaths on it. And
Oh,
the highway right beside it has had several deaths. And I wrote down some of them. Between mid April to now, there have been several accidents, jet ski deaths, bodies found, and fatal accidents on the road by the lake. On March 15th, a dead body was found face down on the shore of a man who had gone missing in January.
oh,
His boat was found in perfect condition on the day he went missing, back in January, floating on the lake. His body wasn't found, but they found his body just like this week, face down on the side, and it wasn't extraordinarily deteriorated.
that's weird. Ian said it sounds like it's about to become Lake Unpleasant.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and there's been a whole bunch of like accidents where they didn't quite die. There was two girls who were sitting on a tube in the back of their dad's truck, and he hit a bump, and it threw them out of the truck onto the road.
Oh
They
my
almost died.
God, great.
Yeah, a couple of people died on jet skis. A handful of people died on the road right beside the lake. Horrible crashes. Um, just bodies and deaths all over the place on this lake, and they still have it open.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Anywho, I had a little note to myself, and I might mention this. I was trying to look into like the scientific reasoning that they think that you see harbingers before or
Oh,
omens before bad things happen. And I thought this was really interesting, and I'm just going to say it verbatim because I have a word on it. It says they point to electromagnetic field disruptions that often precede earthquakes or structural failures. These EMF changes can cause hallucinations or altered perceptions in humans sensitive to them, potentially explaining the consistent timing of sightings before disasters.
yeah.
Now, while I think they think that this is going to shoot it down, I actually think it helps support it.
It does.
I don't know. What do you think?
I would agree. I would agree.
And the fact that they are getting electromagnetic field discrepancies before things even happen tells me there's something going on. I love how they just overlook that part. Like they skimmed over it and tried to use it as a way to like bat that down. I thought that was hilarious. Um,
Fortunately,
yeah.
we track EMF in a lot of the things that we do because of the weird situations that seem to come along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
I
does
just
kind
thought,
of agree with their theory.
yeah, they kind of like kicked themselves in the butt, is what they did. They
Yeah.
ate their own foot.
And so it said weird EMF storms. That's portals opening and closing, maybe. Oh, interesting. They could be coming
Yeah.
in through them.
I will say, oh gosh, what is that place called? The number generator uh thing that they've got going on. What is that called? The worldwide. It's got a name. I'll have to look it up for the next show. They've been doing this research for years. They have these random number generators set up all over the world, and they run numbers all day long, and they've been noting fluctuations with them before things happen or when things are
Oh,
happening.
wow. I don't think I
And
knew
it
that.
yeah, it has to do with the global consciousness. They're testing to see, like if they can see if like the whole world kind of changes consciousness if something big happens or if it happens before it happens. And they
Oh,
had some weird skew with the numbers when 9/11 happened, and other the tsunamis and stuff like that. I'll have to look it up and bring some more information on the next
yeah,
one.
that's fascinating. I want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to look that up.
Hmm.
So, before we move on to anything else, I do want to say, like, all of this Mothman stuff, if you're really interested in it, I found the most fantastic thing ever. Um, it's a, it's actually a dissertation and thesis that was done in 2022 by Eleanor Haskin, Hasken. She did one called The Migration of Local Legend, The Case of Mothman.
Ooh,
And she does a fantastic job. It's where I found a lot of this information at. She does a fantastic job of breaking it down. Now, I will let you know if you don't know what a dissertation is. Um, it's a very lengthy, like down into the nitty gritty of every last little detail. So you're going to have to skip a lot of it. But skip down into like the meat of it. She's got headings for all the different chapters and you can really read some insight into the whole Mothman phenomena. So much great information. It's completely free online. You can find it at the Indiana University Dissertations and Thesis on ProQuest. It's absolutely free to go read in its entirety and so very, very interesting. In fact, I'm not completely done with it. I'm still reading on it a little bit. I think I'm out of the meat of it, but like Pam and I are such nerds. We enjoy the minutia.
I have to tell you, I was really sad when my son graduated college because he let me access things that he had access to through the school, with his student ID, like some of the papers and things that you'd have to pay for otherwise. And yeah, and lost that access. But for those that don't know, dissertations is something that you have to complete before you finish like a PhD degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge thing, and it has to be very detailed. It has to be very thorough. You have to really make your case. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I would like to read it. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah. If I remember, I'll try to get a link put on it and throw it
Oh,
on our Facebook page.
cool. Enzo said, "I've heard of the Global Consciousness Project's random number
That's what he said.
generators. I don't recall a special name for it."
Yeah, that's what it was. The Global Consciousness Project. That was what I was trying to think of. My addled brain.
And
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
super interesting.
interesting. Rendlesham is a short hop from UK's electronics test area. Hmm. We
Ooh.
talked
Yeah,
earlier today about doing
about
something in Rendlesham.
Rendlesham. Yeah, that's on our list of to-dos. We
It
have too many. We have too many. Um, but like I said, we also want to throw in, what you guys want to hear. It's, one of the reasons why we're doing one of ends today. So,
Yes, for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
All right.
We
So,
are
did
down
you
to that time. Do we want to go ahead
Yeah. Are
and
we are we all ready to do some notebook games? I'm going to tell you, so we're pretty sure that this is probably going to be at least we know it's going to be a two-parter. So next in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about more harbingers. We're going to get into, like some of the different cultures, what they have in their own. I'm sorry, in. I've got a lot of stuff
well
from your area. I tried desperately to like look up how it's pronounced properly and then like phonetically spell it out to myself so I
to get
don't
ready
mess it
to
up too
cackle
bad.
because that'll
Yeah,
be good,
so
I'm sure.
I don't know why I'm apologizing. He probably thinks it's hilarious and it's quite entertaining. So you're welcome.
Yeah, we're going to dig into things like the different animals, the different paranormal aspects of it. So it's going to be fun. When we were looking at this, we're like, okay, we've got to split this up because there's too much that we don't want to just, glide over. We want to really get into it. So yeah, it'll be at
Yeah.
least a two-parter.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that in 2 weeks. But anywho, oh, wait a minute. What does she say? Is there something going on Saturday in Caney? I don't think so.
That I'm
Is
aware of.
there? Mm-mm. Okay.
If there is, I won't be there because I don't know what.
Oh, the club meeting is happening on Saturday.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh shoot. Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll actually touch on that before we're done with the show. We're so deep in like bad omens and stuff. I can't even think straight
No.
about what we got going on. All right, so I've got 5 notebooks. It's time. Everybody know what to do. Start picking your book, 1 through 5, and then a page 1 through 100.
First one's up already. It is book 3, page 25 from
Oh,
Chris.
get down to the right book. Okay, and it's 25.
While you're doing that,
Okay.
I'm gonna pull this.
This is on. Oh, this is when we were doing like disappearing, reappearing islands.
Oh, nice. One of my
Yes.
favorites.
So this page is on the Isle of Demons in Newfoundland, Canada. It's also called the Phantom Island. All maps up until the mid 1700s, just off the northern tip of Quirpon Island, sat another small island named the Isle of Demons. So just beside Quirpon was another island, supposedly, for quite a while. The area is very cold and desolate with very jagged shores. No inhabitants in the area to speak of except for the lighthouse keeper on Quirpon Island. The smaller island took on its name from nearby residents and sailors who claimed it was the home of evil spirits who would sink ships that got too close. A French noblewoman, Marguerite de la Roque, was marooned on the island in the mid 16th century, allegedly because of an affair she had with a young man on her ship. Her ghost now supposedly haunts its shores. However, sometime between the earliest maps to the 1700s, the island seemed to have vanished and eventually became a legend, although the island most certainly existed on maps before the mid 1700s. So it existed there from the beginning of the time they made maps all the way up to the mid 1750s where it vanished and it's not there anymore.
Nice.
Yeah. And you can see it on all these different maps from back then. The fact that I can't believe that they would make up an island in the same exact spot named the same exact thing with all the maps from across, across the world.
That's pretty wild.
Another one of those disappearing islands, although I don't think it's reappeared. So, just a disappearing island.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a good one.
All right. Yeah.
Yay.
Short but sweet. What do we
Yeah.
got now?
Notebook
5.
page 56 from Alicia.
Okay. Ugh. Notebooks are heavy.
It's all that knowledge. It's like your spare brain.
Something. Okay. This is a Is it partial? No, it's a full list. It's a full list of cryptids in Idaho.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And if I recall by looking at it here, yeah, it is. Idaho has silly cryptids. So this should be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. The Swan Valley Monster from Swan Valley, seen August 22nd, 1868. Snake-like head, or snake, a snake-like head the size of a wash tub. It has a single horn that moves up and down, an elephant trunk that blows water, long black whiskers and 10-inch long fangs, a red forked tongue that spews green poison,
Oh my.
20 foot long with wing-like fins on the side of its neck. It's long like a snake with an alligator tail on the end. It's spiny with scales with 10 stubbly legs, each with a different style of foot, claws, hooves, feet, paws, etc. That's the Swan Valley Monster.
Nice.
I have a feeling that was probably one that was made up for the papers
Probably.
to get their readership up.
Of course.
Yeah.
Platypus.
The next one is the Bear Lake Monster from 1868. It has 2 big humps that can be seen above water. It's dark green, has slimy skin, and beet red eyes. There's Charlie, and I know that Charlie is the most famous one from Idaho. It's in Lake Pind or Reel. It was first spotted in the 1940s. Large and gray, it races from one end of the lake to the other and resembles a giant eel.
Oh,
so
nice.
that's their famous water one. And so that just left her parts glued together. Yeah, I imagine it's kind of like a platypus. Like somebody messed up. Somebody messed up there. I imagine the dude that saw the Swan Valley Monster was probably inebriated and he was making excuses for why he didn't make it home that night to his wife or something. Well, I saw this thing in the water.
Chris said, "I'm
Draw
going
a picture of it."
that.
I don't know if I can draw all the parts. Goodness.
That's awesome.
The next one is the Paddler, Payette Lake, 1920, and this is part of the Native American legends. 35 feet long, dinosaur-type head, humps like a camel, and shell-like skin. And that one has been seen multiple times, too. So it's another lake monster that's often seen.
Wild.
Yeah. And I have no idea how to pronounce this, but I'm going to try. The Nimerajar, or the Nimeragar. It's a Shoshone Indian one. And they are tiny people eaters.
Oh,
so
my.
they're like little people, only bad. They attack with tiny bows and arrows, so they're like the local little people for them.
Oh, it's like the little doll in Creepshow.
Yeah. Ooh, oh. I remember that one.
Terrible.
And Idaho is also home to the Wampus cat. Now, you've probably heard us mention the Wampus cat before. It's quite prevalent in our area and into the Ozarks.
Yeah.
It's a big cat with mystical powers, huge green eyes, and it can extend its claws many feet to catch its prey. If you look up online at like hand-drawn pictures of the Wampus cat, you'll often see pictures where it looks like it's got ratcheted arms, like extends out like a robot to grab birds out of the sky.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The Wampus cat. It's very exciting.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. All right, that's the end of that list. What
Okay,
else
the
do we
next
got?
one is book 4, page 73 from Julie.
Okay. 73.
Ian said, "Who among us hasn't had an inebriated encounter with a mysterious creature?"
Uh,
Caddy Kruger. There you go.
Caddy Kruger. Oh my lord. This is on the two girls, the Pauline Picard case. And I have no idea how to pronounce this. It's a town in France. Goes el Ludo, France, April 1922. In the small French village of Goes al Ludu, a little girl named Pauline Picard went missing from her parents' farm. After weeks of searching, the family had no choice but to give up, assuming she must have been kidnapped. Until a young girl matching Pauline's description was found wandering in Cherbourg, 250 miles away. The family traveled there, identified the girl as Pauline, and brought her home. However, the child seemed strange and wouldn't speak a word. A
Mm.
month later, a farmer about a mile out from the family's hometown found the body of a small naked girl with her clothes folded up neatly nearby. The body and head were unrecognizable, having been eaten by foxes. The clothing was identified as Pauline's.
Oh,
Wondering if it was Yeah. Wondering if it was possible they had taken the wrong little girl, she was taken to be looked at by the family physician and local dentist, who both stated unequivocally that she was most definitely Pauline, down to the identical dental work, birthmarks, scars, and freckles. And that's the end of it. They never figured
oh,
out.
that's
Um,
weird.
and I have a little note to myself, 411,
Yeah,
with the folded up clothes and all
yeah,
of that.
yeah. Kind of
I,
sounds like it.
yeah, super weird.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah,
those are.
Chelsea said that's how you get a changeling. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And there was something
Right.
else I was going to say about them. Oh, Ginger had said that Caddy Kruger is a great name for one of her ferals. And Enzo said for ferals, Kittler and Chairman Meow is also acceptable. Those are
Nice.
great. I like it.
Do we have any others?
We do. I'm backing
Okay.
up here. Ian, book 2, page 43, please.
Okay.
You were saying their last name was Picard. I'm surprised somebody didn't say if they or
Oh, Jean
allude to
Luc.
Jean Luc. Maybe it was in his family tree somewhere.
Well, it could be because Picard is. Well, no, I mean Picard isn't a real name, but it's a real name.
His
But
real
his
name.
character, it was his
Oh, come
character
on.
name.
Of course he's real. He's real in our heart.
Yeah. Okay. This one's short but funny. Congratulations, In. You finally got one that's not gross or disturbing. This is titled President Lincoln Saw Winston Churchill Naked.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Throughout World War II, Churchill visited the White House several times. On one occasion, he was given the famous Lincoln bedroom to stay in. According to Churchill, he had just gotten out of his evening bath, went into the bedroom completely unclad, and saw, leaning against the fireplace, Abraham Lincoln. The Yeah, because he supposedly haunts the Lincoln bedroom. The prime minister simply said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." And Lincoln, Churchill said, acknowledged the prime minister with a knowing look and then very slowly faded away.
So I wonder if you switched that time around, if Lincoln was somewhere and here comes Churchill as a ghost. And the
Yeah, and he was like,
oh, yeah.
there's a big old fat naked guy in my bedroom.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Yikes.
that one was funny.
Oh, that's funny. Enzo said, I couldn't
Uh,
find a way to slip in. Make it so.
I think that's one of the ones I had for like a Ripley's Believe It or Not or something like that. I can't remember.
So funny. Okay, the next one's Chelsea, book 5, page 20.
Ooh, okay. Getting it.
That's hilarious. And so proper. You seem to have me at a disadvantage. Good old Abe, ever the gentleman. Yes. Julie said, unclad. Love it. Right? It's hilarious. That's like tornado season. Don't ever sleep naked. Always
What
be,
is this?
always wear your clothes in the Lincoln bedroom.
Oh, this is a case file. What is it? From ICCRA. The ICCRA is the Independent Crop Circle Researchers Association. So this is a case file on a crop circle. State of New York, Annandale, Staten Island, Richmond County, February 14th, 1975. And I'm just going to read it. These case files sometimes come across a little weird because they're literally how the experiencer wrote it down. A man out walking his dog notices it became extremely agitated, then broke free of the chain and ran away. Within 100 yards of the spot, a ball of light looking like a red hot poker, glowing a brilliant shade of orange and shaped like a football about 25 feet in diameter, descended out of the sky to treetop level. Several additional witnesses also saw the object hover over the trees for about 10 minutes. They watched the object change its shape from a football to an egg shape and to suddenly shrink in size to a small ball before disappearing. The area underneath the object had been severely affected. Everything, grass, shrubs, thickets, in a 40 to 50-foot radius had been flattened in a clockwise direction, and the soil had been charred. Several trees had been sheared off to about 10 foot off the ground, and several 5-inch thick branches were found broken off and lying in the circular area. Both officers from the Annandale Police Department and reporters from the Staten Island Advance were impressed enough to have the USAF, the United States Air Force, come to investigate the site, but no official report has been uncovered at this time. Crop type, grass trees. From CUFOS files, report dated February 27th, 1975. So,
Nice.
interesting.
Good one.
Crop circle.
I like crop circles. Those are always fun.
I do too.
Always fascinating.
They're interesting.
Okay, the next one's Enzo, book 1, page 53, please.
Okay. Easy enough. Get back down to the right one again.
So, Enzo, I assume it's safe to say that you weathered the storm just fine last night since you're online tonight. We're glad of that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that and see
We
if
had
you'd
storms
lived.
last night in our area. There was a huge hailstone that came out of Arc City, which our friend Scotty, that's on our team, he lives in Arc City, and he had just purchased a new SUV a couple of weeks ago, and it's now needing new windshield. And I think his other vehicle might be needing a new windshield too. I think he said they were down 3 windshields, maybe.
Yeah,
But
that's what he said.
yeah, that hailstone, the person holding it was holding it in both hands like this. Huge. Scary.
All right. This is part of a listing of haunted cemeteries in Oklahoma, and this one's basically on the Timber Ridge Cemetery in Catoosa. It actually isn't all that far from us.
No, about an hour.
Yeah. The Timber Ridge Cemetery is 6 miles east of Catoosa on Highway 412. It's a small community cemetery. It sits on the edge of an area known to local residents as Haunted Hollow. It said in 1989, a young Indian boy was struck by a car while stopped on the road on his bike. He was buried in the cemetery on the first row by the gate. The gate sits at the bottom of the hill, and since 1993, drivers have claimed that as they come over the hill, spotting a young boy kneeling next to the bike, they swerve to miss him, and others distinctly hear the sound of the car striking something, but when they expect the road, no body is found. Some claim to even spotted bloody handprints on their fenders. And Catoosa Police Department have on file several reports of drivers saying they struck a boy on the bicycle in front of the cemetery gate, and even have photos of minor damage to the cars, but no body has ever been found. Also, several teenagers trespassing in the wooded lot in front of the cemetery have claimed to have had sudden nosebleeds and spots glowing, or seeing spots glowing and objects moving above the graves. It's rumored that the cemetery gate has been seen by the caretaker to open itself, and several of those caretakers have quit because of it.
Oh,
There is truth to that one. There was a Indian boy who was hit by a vehicle near that cemetery. It wasn't right in front of it, but it was near enough. And there are a lot of reports of people thinking that they've hit someone when in fact there was no one there. So
man,
interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting little place.
it is. Oh, just
Mm-hmm.
for everyone's information, Enzo said he weathered the storm just fine. They just had a lot of rain. And Julie said she had huge limbs down, barely missed her car. So, and then he said, yeah, wild. Thanks, Jess. Okay, we have another one.
Absolutely.
Let me go find
Okay.
it. I think it's Ginger. Where are you? There you are. Notebook 3, page 61, please.
Okay. Oh, I'm breaking up the joint here.
Don't do that. Like dominoes. One thing goes, the whole thing goes. So don't.
Um,
We'll be
oh,
digging Jess out.
this is Sally House stuff.
Ooh.
It's just notes, so I'll just read it. At the top it says Barbara Connor, medium, 1993, from the Sally story. Peter James, purported psychic, corroborated the Sally story. There are no known facts to support it, and those are notes to myself, and that's referring to before the Pickmans wrote their famous book about the Sally house and kind of really came forward with their stories. They brought in help, and part of the was it sightings? Was it
Mhm.
the sightings crew that came in?
Yep.
And uh, they brought in Barbara Connor first. She was a medium, and she's the first one that came up with the Sally story. She named her Sally, gave her her whole backstory, and then later on, when sightings came in, they brought Peter James with them, and he just like corroborated her story
He
word for
did.
word.
He did.
Like he
He
already knew the
very
story.
obviously, yeah, knew the story.
Yeah. In my opinion, there was never a Sally there. However, there may be a Sally there now, solely through like a Tulpa hive mind type of situation.
Yes.
We do know that I can't remember his name, Pickman.
Tony.
Tony Pickman did see the ghost of a little girl, and it still kind of haunts him to this day. People don't realize that she followed him.
She
She
did.
exists in the home he lives in now, which is only like it's a little less than a mile away from that original house. They still
Yeah.
live in Atchison.
Oh,
So also on this page, known experiences in the house, dark shadows, voices and EVPs, physical attacks favoring men, electronic failures, EMF fluctuations, cold and hot spots, poltergeist activity, lights turning off and on, audible bumps and knocks, fires, but only while the Pickmans lived there, odd smells, and drained batteries. And after we went, we can add um, raccoon attacks, bird infestations, and missing time,
yes.
and glowing things going up the stairs.
Yes.
Um, Pickman's claims while in the home: October 31st, 1993, Tony saw a young girl in the kitchen in front of the basement door. The girl was wearing a dress that looked like it was from the 1800s. He didn't recall this until much later. Tony would suddenly become covered in bloody scratches. He was also set on fire, pushed, pinned down in bed, bitten, and thrown. Toys in the nursery were moved on different occasions. And that's the end of that page. The getting scratched and the bleeding and the burns were actually proven by the sightings crew. They would actually set him down in a chair and put multiple cameras on him and not turn them off, and you could actually see them manifest on his body.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they had him sitting where he had to have his hands on he was like in a recliner chair, and they had his hands flat down on the armrests and his feet apart, and they sat all around him with cameras and just watched. So they know there's no way he like purposely scratched himself and then was like, "Oh, look what's forming on my body." It literally manifested right in front of the cameras. Kind of interesting. You can go back and see those, I believe, on YouTube. You can go back and see the old sightings
Yeah. They're interesting
versions
a
of
lot.
them.
Yeah.
They are.
And it's wild
The
because when
psychics,
you say
eh.
scratch, it wasn't just a little scratch. It was like red. Sometimes there was a little blood and they would whelp up. So it wasn't just like it made white on his skin. No, it was an actual dug
Yeah,
in scratch.
yeah, he bled
And it's interesting.
um,
We were talking about Sally House before this too, because when they talked about the Mothman sounding like the scream or the one at the mine in Germany, that he screamed and it sounded like 50 men screaming at once. There is an EVP from Astonishing Legends um, that they did. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and
oh,
it
it's been way
sounds.
longer than that.
Has it been longer than that now? Goodness.
Yeah.
It sounds like numerous people screaming at the top of their lungs
Mhm.
at the same time. And interestingly enough, some friends of ours caught a very, very similar EVP while they were there with a different type of equipment or a different brand of equipment, I should say. And then there's been other cases of people having recorded that same sound there now. So that's interesting. I'd like to know what that's all
Yeah.
about. Do we have anybody else? Was that it? I think that was it.
Huh?
Yeah, Julie said they did close the basement because of what people were trying to do down there. It was still open when we were there, but we have been told it's been closed since then.
Yeah.
Um, oh, Enzo said, Pam, get that guy you had on last night with his EVB tech up there. Right? I
Oh
was
my
telling Beth
gosh.
about that today and had her listen to some of that stuff. That's incredible. Trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to build one. Yeah. Really super nice couple. Yeah, yeah, I agree. They're pretty
Yeah.
pretty cool.
All right. Well, it's getting late. It's after the second hour. Do you want to pull up the stuff on UFO Day and all that really
Yep.
quick? And I'll do the out.
Yeah.
Everybody, stick around for just a couple more minutes. We have some news to talk about. So, coming up here, July 5th, 2025, we're going to have Kansas UFO Day in Geneseo, Kansas. Yay! And we get to talk again. Enzo will be there. Scotty will be there. And Mark Bannon will be there, just like we were last year. Come and join us. I know we're doing a panel in the morning on the 1878 UFO flap, or I shouldn't say UFO, the airship flap because they weren't UFOs yet. And the Kansas UFO triangle that's up in that area there. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do a big Q&A panel. We're going to kind of talk about who we are and just let everybody ask any kind of question that they want, and we'll be available all day long at our tent if you want to come by and visit us. It should be fun. They usually have like a parade. They have a big area full of vendors. I know they have like little competitions, right?
They do, and the entire town gets in on it, and it's a lot of fun. And I think aren't this year it's focused on UFO art and culture, so I think there's going to be some art things to do
Yeah.
too. It should be fun.
Yeah.
So
So
the
join us
whole
there.
town gets in on it. It's a very small town, very very community driven. So it's a lot of. We really enjoyed it last year.
Yeah.
Good
It's
time.
super fun.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we will be at Paracon, the Kansas City Paracon, August 2nd, and it is in Leavenworth, Kansas. Um, and it's at the old Masonic Lodge,
Masonic.
isn't it where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
so
haunted in itself.
it is, yeah. We'll be vendors there, and there'll be some decent names there. Dustin Perry's going to be there, Josh Cutchin, which we're really excited about. And
Yay.
he's an author, and we love his stuff. Rachel
Absolutely.
Stratton from Ghost Hunters, Brian Murray from Ghost Hunters, David Glidden's going to be there, and the signing Paranormal Seekers, which I'm not familiar with them, so it'd be interesting to find out who they are. But it's
Yep.
$10 tickets to get in, and it's going to be a good time. And I know they're selling tickets. They may be sold out already. I don't know, but it's to do a ghost hunt at the Kansas Penitentiary. So
Hmm.
that'll be
And they
interesting.
have another one to investigate there at the Masonic Hall too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So go and
gonna
check
be a
that
good
out. They're on
time.
yeah, they're on Facebook and everything. So go check it out. Anywho, okay, so
We got
let's
one more
let's
thing.
wrap this up. Oh,
Well,
one more thing, the Paracon.
two more things. We got the Paracon, and our schedule is down, so it's going to run 9 to 7:30. It's going to be Saturday, September 27th, and we've got a lot of good speakers and panelists. We're super excited about. We got a lot of vendors coming in. Got lots of authors coming in. Really excited about that. So it's going to be a good time. It's a fun day to get to come and listen to all things paranormal, and you get to meet all of us. We will be there. We will be running around like chickens with our heads cut off, but we will be there.
Yeah,
And
and it's free.
it's free. It is free to the public, ages 12 and up, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
So we hope to see everybody for that. And then next Saturday, this Saturday, I'm sorry, we will have our monthly paranormal club meeting at the Caney City Library. Starts at 2 p.m. And this month, Scotty Rademacher and Trisha Rawlings are going to come over from Arc City. They're with Red Dirt Cryptids and uh, Kansas Sightings. And they're going to talk about Bigfoot. They're going to bring some of their evidence and lots of photos and things. So it'll be a really interesting time. So we hope to see everybody at that too.
Yay. It should be a good one. I don't get to go, but boo.
Yes, Jess won't be there, darn it. But
It's
we
okay. I'm visiting my kid in Denver. I'm excited.
yes.
All right, so let's take this on out of here. So thank you everybody for hanging out in the chats and doing the notebook game and bantering back and forth with us on a very somewhat sad topic most of the time. Join us.
Mark
What?
has been told he has to work overtime till 3 p.m. on Saturday.
Aw.
Bummer. Bummer, bummer.
Oh,
That's
Enzo said he might be down.
oh, great. That'd be great. Chelsea said she's going to have a handful of friends planning to come to Paracon this year. That's super
Yay!
exciting.
Come hang out with us.
Geneseo is an amazing time. So hopefully, yeah, you do get to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for hanging out in the chats and playing notebook game with us. If you haven't done it yet, take a second, like and share, or thumbs up. Subscribe, hit that bell, please. Help us get our numbers up. If you want to listen in, you can get us on all your podcast providers. Check us out there. Also remember, if you are on your podcast platforms, please give us a rating, even if it's just the 1 star. Give us a rating.
Let us know if you're listening.
um, our next show will be Wednesday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. Central. Join us for the second part of all this Harbinger stuff. We're going to get into the nitty gritty. Should be fun. Anywho, if that's it, keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. Good night.
Good night, everybody.